Hello and welcome to GPS. My name is Dr. Jim Quigley, Managing Director of Calf Notes Consulting and author of Calf Notes and the newest member of the Calf Notes Consulting family, the Calf Growth Prediction System, or GPS. Thanks for your interest in the program. I'm sure you'll find it can provide you with information and insights into calf nutrition that have never been available before. GPS will help you improve diets for young calves, optimizing their growth, efficiency, and their welfare. This Getting Started introductory video will get you on the road to the success with the program. Well, let's get started. This video, Getting Started, is designed to give you an introduction to the program, how to enter data, how to interpret the results that are produced, and how to save your work, and finally, how to get additional information on the details of the program. So let's get started. The main points we'll cover during this presentation include the output windows, navigating with the main menu, the nutrient grids, very important for inputting information into the feeding program, interpreting output, saving files, and getting help in the future. Let's begin by taking a look at the output windows within GPS. We'll assume you have an active subscription, that you have downloaded the program, and you have entered your credentials to reach the start screen, which would look something like this. And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see two tabs, the Scientific tab and the Performance tab. This is the Scientific tab, which shows data in great detail. The Performance tab is a second window that also shows the results of a simulation, but in somewhat a simpler form. So we can move back and forth between these as we'd like to find information. Now, much of the information is presented on both tabs. For example, average daily gain is shown here, average daily gain is reported here, and average daily gain is reported here for different characteristics of the simulation. If we're only interested in a snapshot of the simulation, we can look at somewhat simpler results that are shown here. Moving back and forth is as simple as clicking on the window tab to select one or the other output. The next important point is how to navigate with the main menu. We see the main simulation menu here. Let's take a look at it within the program. The main menu will be the same regardless of the window that you're looking at. Science or performance, it doesn't matter. The main menu will be the same. And this is where we input data, mostly to the left side of the menu, where we take care of the feeding program, these three tabs here, liquid, grain, and forage, and where we look at output for minerals, amino acids, and various diagnostics. So for example, if we want to look at the characteristics of the grain program, we can simply look at the composition of the grains that we're feeding, and the nutrient grid will pop up and allow us to look at and manipulate the composition of the grain. So accessing the diet, the liquids, grains, and forages that we feed to the calf are always in these nutrient grids. We can change characteristics of the calf here. There's Farm and Calf Info, which provides us a means for changing things like the calf's birth body weight, the mature body weight of the animal, the pre-weaning target gains that we have, and several other characteristics. The other aspects include changing the target settings. The target settings are very important when we look at the Performance tab. These red, green boxes are a function of these targets. So if we change the target, something that we're looking to achieve, then the characteristics will change as well. So for example, for feeding liquids, our target for the first 2 months is 60 kilos, and for the second 2 months of the simulation is 10 kilos. So we have a total target here set for 70 kilos, you can see here. However, our intake of milk is 40 kilos. So we're well below the target that we have. If our target is not correct, when in fact we really want to feed less milk, we can change the target here and everything will recalculate. So there are a number of adjustments and inputs that we have for farm and calf. The Settings tab allows us to make changes to the way the model calculates. These are called switches, and these will change most of these will change the internal calculations done. Now there are a few that are more practical. For example, changing the targets. If we don't want to see the targets, the colors of the targets, we can simply change the setting and turn off the calculation of the color. So there are many of these, and there's a video to explain all of these in greater detail. So farm and calf and settings are important. The palette allows us to change the color system within the program. So if your eyes tend to prefer a darker format, then you can certainly change the palette and have a different approach. Reporting, this allows you to enter farm information for the farm and to print reports. We'll look at this in more detail in a separate video, but this is how you report data either to a file or to the printer. The reporting is shown to the right side of the menu. We can look at the nutrition of the minerals in the diet, macro or micro minerals. This will open a new screen that allows us to look at in much detail the amounts of various minerals that are fed during the course of the simulation, and also the requirements that the calf has. Similarly, we have a separate screen for amino acids, and this will be the subject of several videos because it's very interesting, and we'll go into great detail here. And then finally, the diagnostics. There are many reports that can provide information about the simulation, how the calf's specific data, either on one day or throughout the entire trial. And again, each of these will be the topic of a separate training video. So the menu bar will be very important, and you will use this to manage the program throughout the program. Now, the nutrient grids are critical, and they're the main part for entering the nutrient data and the feeding program for the calves. And let's take a look at those in a little more detail. There are three sets of nutrient grids: the liquid, the grain, and the forage. Now, we're assuming within GPS that these are the three primary sources of nutrients for the calf: liquids, milk or milk replacer; grains, calf starters and growers or concentrates in general; and then forages. Let's take a look at the grain program to begin. You'll notice that there are two options: the feeding program and the composition. This is the same for each of the feed sources. We see feeding program and composition. We'll begin by looking at the composition of the diet. Here we see a new window will open that we can manipulate. We can make it larger and smaller. We can move it around, and we can actually have multiple windows open at the same time if we choose, but that's a topic of another discussion. I'm currently feeding two feeds, feed 1 and feed 2. A calf starter at 18% protein. Now remember, these numbers are on a dry matter basis, so this as fed 18 will calculate to about 20%. And then a 14% calf grower, which is shown here. I can change the nutrient content of these simply by entering a cell and making a change. There are many different nutrients that I can look at. You can see here the number of nutrients currently displayed is only 10. However, we can show as many as 54. So you don't necessarily want to get lost in all of these, but you can change the number that are displayed and simply scroll to take a look to see which ones you're interested in. Okay. Similarly, the nutrient grid for forages is essentially the same. In this case, we're feeding wheat straw as a forage source. You can see the nutrient composition here. The feeding program, there's a little checkbox here that will allow us to look at the way that we feed this particular feed, which is wheat straw. We have the cost here, the day that we begin offering this and the day that we end offering this. We assume that between these two, the amount will be offered every day. We can set a maximum, that is, the calf will not be able to consume more than this. And for forages, we set a particular percentage of the dry matter coming from forage. Now, if you go to the forage program menu and click on feeding program, you'll see this is exactly the same thing. So it's possible for us to get to the feeding program by clicking the button here, the button that says feeding program, or by selecting the menu item. For grains, we have the same type of layout. We see here we have our starter and grower. If I click the feeding program, I go to the feeding program here, same layout. I have the cost, the day of first offering, and the day the maximum that we are going to feed. And you can see in this particular simulation, I've set a maximum that the grower will be fed of 3 kilos. And as the intake of grower, which begins on day 50, somewhere in here, then the calf will once it reaches that maximum, will not be allowed to eat any more calf grower. That's why the forage intake, shown here in orange, increases dramatically as the grower amount stays the same. So this is how we manipulate the dry feed. For liquids, the feed composition layout is exactly the same. In this scenario, simulation, I'm feeding 3 different sources of liquids. I'm feeding colostrum, and I'm feeding transition milk, and I'm feeding a milk replacer 2617 composition. You'll notice that the composition of protein here is actually a bit lower. I may want to adjust that to be closer to the 26 on the label. Now, I may not remember what 26% on a dry matter basis is, but if I right-click on this cell, then a small calculator pops up, and I can do the calculation. So if I want to know at 26 divided by the dry matter percentage, which is 95, then I can see the calculated value is 27.4. I can actually click the P button and paste that directly into the cell, so that saves me a little bit of time. So this allows me to change the nutrient composition. If I go to the feeding program, the liquid feeding program is a little more complex. Here we have the cost as before, but we have a number of columns that are laid out in a series of periods. Period 1, the beginning day; period 1, the ending day; and period 1, the number of grams fed per day. We move to period 2, 3, 4, and so forth. We can have up to 20 periods in our feeding program. Now, most programs won't have quite that many, but let's see how we might lay these out. So let's say, as an example, I'm going to feed colostrum during day 1. And I'm going to feed, let's say we're going to feed 6 liters during that first 24-hour period. I'll feed 4 liters at birth and then 2 liters 12 hours later. I'm going to continue feeding colostrum on days 2 and 3, just a bit, and I'm going to mix it with the transition milk that I have available. So for days 2 and 3, I'm going to feed a combination of colostrum and transition milk. Now you'll notice my milk replacer, I've set this up in the same format just to keep things simple. So on day 1, I'm feeding 0, 2 and 3, I feed 0, and then I'll begin transitioning to on day 4, I won't feed any more milk, colostrum or transition milk, and I'll move to start to feed milk replacer. So here, I'm feeding from day 4 until day 10, 650 grams. On day 11 to day 49, I will feed 800 grams, and then from day 50 to 56, 400 grams, and on day 56, I'm weaning the calf. So from here on, there are no other entries in the nutrient grid. So really, I could change my display to 5 steps, and that would be the end of the program. You'll notice in the grid that the beginning columns are always in gray, and if I try to click on that column, I can't enter it. If I move my tab to try to get into that cell, it's not possible. When I change the ending date of the previous period, the beginning date will recalculate. So let's say, for example, for period 3, I'm feeding from 4 to 10 days, and period 4 will automatically begin on day 11. If I change period 3 to let's say 14 days, then the period 4 beginning day will recalculate, and the amount of milk that I'm feeding will also recalculate. So these values for the beginnings are more for your information. But this allows us to enter a very sophisticated milk feeding program as we like. And as we make changes to any of these values, the program will recalculate. Let's make a change to the feeding program for liquid. We'll change the milk feeding program, add an extra period, and wean the calves. Instead of weaning at 56 days, we'll wean the calves on day 63, but we'll between 57 and 63 we'll feed the calves 250 grams. And you'll notice here there was a change. I'll set that back to 0. And you'll notice here there's a change as I make that calculation. The nutrient grids are essential, and as you go through the calculations of the model, these will be the primary place where you will be entering the feeding program and the nutrient content data. Now let's take a quick look at interpreting output. We've taken a quick look at some of these already, but here's the minerals output. You can see here that for now the micro minerals, we have a graph that shows the intake of the mineral and the nutrient requirement shown here in the bars. And we can see very clearly whether we are feeding in excess or we are feeding in deficit for each of these individuals. We also have an intake and requirement table here that we can manipulate and change the day of age. So for example, on day 24, I can see the intake of each of these minerals and whether or not I am in deficit or excess on this specific day. Similarly, the amino acid table provides us a similar type of arrangement where we can look at the requirement, the intake, and also the supply. Now remember that amino acids are metabolized in the rumen and each have different digestibilities, so these numbers will be somewhat different. We'll have a video specific to the amino acid output in another video. And there are many different types of reports that allow us to look in great detail at the results of the simulation. And each of these can show us the kinds of data that you could get from the NASA model for a specific day. Now it's important that you be able to save your work. And so we'll take a look at how to save files and open them and manipulate them outside of GPS. We've made a number of changes to the simulation, and it might be important for us to save our work. The current file that we're working on is shown here. Here's the name of the file, GPS data 2025-57A1. We can save this file by clicking on the file option in the main menu and click on the save option. GPS will open a box that allows us to save the file. Normally we will be in the Documents GPS version 1.0 folder within that main Documents folder. And you can see in my current situation I have a few that are already saved. GPS gives me the option of saving under a new name. In this situation, the current date, 5/14. If I click on save, I will create a new file within the GPS directory. Now let's take a look at that GPS directory. In my Documents folder, GPS version 1.0, you see I have a number of the simulation files. Now you may notice that these are labeled by Windows as Microsoft separated values files. The final topic is getting help, and GPS is full with a full help system that can provide you with information about how to use or interpret various aspects of the program. In most of the windows that are produced, you will see a help button that is shown here, and the main menu has a full help menu. The primary one is shown here, GPS Online Help, and this will take you to the GPS website where there's an extensive documents folder that contains information about various aspects of GPS. So if you want more information about the nutrient grids, or file formats, or opening or saving files, or various aspects of reporting, all of that information is shown here. If you are interested in a specific aspect of the program, let's say some output, let's go back to the average daily gain report here. If you'd like to know more about this particular graph, if I double click inside the graph, this will take me to the average daily gain charts help system, and you'll be able to take a look in more detail about that. So each of the objects within both the scientific and performance screens will provide you with more information. But a great place to start is the online help, and that will take you to the main menu for the help system. Well, that wraps it up for getting started. Hopefully this video will provide you with a great place to start and put you on the right footing to take full advantage of GPS. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.